The views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Welcome to Simply Fun Cooking. I'm Rachel Hanson, and I'm really excited that you are here today. Today we are going to share a couple of recipes with you, some ways to just spice up the holidays. The holidays are coming. If you're hosting for Thanksgiving or Christmas or Hanukkah, I'm sure you guys are going to be preparing a meal for friends and family or bringing a dish to pass for a meal. So what we have today are a couple of more traditional dishes that you might have around the holidays with a little bit of a twist. So we're going to look at a new stuffing recipe, a new take on cranberries, a very new take on some macaroni and cheese, and a fun, fresh, and seasonal salad. So we're going to start out today with our stuffing. Now this stuffing we are going to make in the oven. We're going to start out on the stovetop here with the pan, and it'll go in the oven. Now what's different about what we're making here today is that we're going to have some butternut squash and some Granny Smith apple in there. So very seasonal foods, very bright flavors. So we're going to start out chopping up some onion and some celery, and we're going to go ahead and saute that up in our pan. So I have here, I've got our wok heated up, and we're going to start with a stick of butter, so half of a cup of butter, and we're going to go ahead and melt that in our pan. So we'll get that melted, and we're going to add in some chopped onion and some celery. So we have about 2 onions here, and then about 5 or 6 sticks of celery. Just kind of chop this up with the food chopper into bite-sized pieces. Get that butter nice and melted. And then we'll add some fresh herbs, and we'll let them kind of caramelize up a little bit, cook down a little bit, and then we're going to add our butternut squash and our apple. So first, let's get all of our veggies cut up here. Food chopper makes this super quick and easy. All right, so we're going to go ahead. Butter is melted. We're going to add in the onion and celery. All right. Make sure those get nicely coated with that butter. And to this, we're also going to add some fresh thyme and fresh sage. All right, so I've actually taken the thyme and the sage, and I've put the leaves right inside the herb mill. All right. See, that's a lot faster than chopping that by hand. All right, so we've got our veggies in there. We've got our sage and our thyme. So we're just going to kind of let that cook for a couple minutes. We're going to add in the apple and the butternut squash. We'll start with the butternut squash. Now, we're going to start by peeling it. You can make this super quick and easy by piercing your butternut squash a little bit and throwing it in the microwave for about 3 minutes before you need to peel it. And it makes it go a little bit faster. All right, so we're going to cut off the bottom here. Take out the rest of these seeds. This bottom part we're actually going to use for another recipe today. The bottom bulb is difficult to spiralize, so, oops. All right, There we go. Now when I pick out a butternut squash, when I'm going to be using the spiralizer, I definitely try to make sure that I pick out one that's got a nice straight body to it. And I like to make sure that it's not too wide so it fits in the spiralizer quite easily. So you can see that if you just throw the squash into the microwave for just a couple minutes, it makes peeling it much easier. And this is just a serrated peeler. We can cut it in half. That should work just fine. Give our veggies a little stir. So, veggie spiralizer. Like I said, we're going to just do the ribbon blade, which means we don't need to add that little key in just yet. We'll use that for a later recipe. So all we need to do is just open this up, plop our squash in there, push down and push and turn. Now butternut squash can be kind of a tough vegetable to spiralize, but because we threw it in the microwave for that couple of minutes before we peeled it, it made it a lot easier to spiralize as well. All right, we'll use this little chunk later. Okay, and then we will spiralize the other side here. I like to take the kitchen shears and kind of cut this up a little bit because as you see, we have one big ribbon. So I like to kind of take it and trim it a little bit as we add this in to our onions and celery. So now we're going to spiralize 3 Granny Smith apples, and we're going to add this to the pot as well. I did take the core out, so we don't have to worry about the core or any seeds getting in the way. But same thing, same blade, just that ribbon blade. Now what I love about our spiralizer is it uses gravity to your advantage. Just push down and turn. And you get perfectly spiralized fruits and veggies. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and give this a mix. It is difficult with a really full pot, but after your veggies cook down for a couple of minutes, we're gonna add in some vegetable broth. So what we're gonna do, we've got this stirred a little bit more here. We are going to add in 3 cups of broth. Now I like to do it with water, and I like to use the dried bouillon. It's nice that you can always have it on hand. It takes up a lot less space in your pantry versus cans or boxes of broth. You always have it when you need it. So we need 3 cups. I poured some of the water in there already, so we just have a little bit of room in here to just kind of mix it all together. We'll just pour the rest in, and that'll mix all together real nicely. So now that we've added the broth, we want to bring this up to a simmer. And then, while that's coming up to a simmer, we're going to get our bread ready to go. And then we'll mix this all together, and we'll put it in our stoneware baking pan, and we'll throw that in the oven. And while we're waiting for that, we are going to just take a big old mixing bowl, and we are going to whisk up 2 eggs. And to the eggs, we are going to add some chopped parsley. And we're going to go ahead and use that herb mill again that I used just a moment ago. I'm going to show you how to get your herbs ready for that. So I've got my rinsed bunch of parsley here. And we're going to take some of them, and all we're going to do is we're going to take the leaves off and throw them right inside this container here. So the herb stripper is perfect for that. Takes those leaves off real quickly. Now the cooking term that you would use when you are shredding up your herbs like this, especially when you're using like big leaf herbs like your basil or your sage, would be to chiffonade, to make ribbons. Chiffonade is the French word for ribbons, so to make ribbons out of them. But this is the quick and easy way to do it without having to stack up all your leaves, roll them up, and cut them with a knife. Although that is a fun skill, this makes it a little bit easier. Now that little ball that you saw in there, That's a ceramic ball. All it does is push the leaves down towards those gears so that we can just spin, and I just give it a shake to push more herbs down. And then as you see, it's really quick and easy. So now you see we've got our our parsley, all nicely chopped up. Add it to the egg there. So we are going to add in our stuffing mix. We need about 16 ounces of your stuffing. Now you can use day-old bread that you chop up yourself, or you can get a mix. Now these are just plain. There's no seasoning added to these, since we are doing all the seasoning ourselves with our vegetables and with our fresh herbs. So I'm just going to go ahead and add these in here. Set that aside. We'll take a big scraper and give this a mix. Get a nice coating of egg over as many of those pieces of bread as we can. And then, as soon as this mixture over here, our veggies with our broth, as soon as this comes up to a simmer, we are going to add this right into the bread as well, and then put it into our baking pan. So you see we've got our nice chopped up bread, and again, you can use a store-bought stuffing mix, or you can take a day or two old loaf of bread and you can chop it up yourself. I went for the easy route today. So we're going to take this and we're going to add our nice mix of veggies here. All right, so we've got our celery and our onion, our butternut squash and our apple, and that broth. Carefully give it a nice mix. And as you can see, make sure you have a nice big bowl for this. It will make your life a lot easier. All right, so we're going to give this a nice mix. Incorporate all those veggies and those apples into our bread. All right, so after this is all mixed, we're going to throw this in the oven at 375 degrees. I'm going to be putting it in a rectangular baking pan. We're going to cover it for the first half hour, and then we'll uncover it for about 15 minutes or so, and then it'll be all ready to go. So we'll get this in the oven, and it can be baking while we are preparing our other side dishes. We'll go ahead and add all of that in there. All right, we're going to kind of spread that out. And then we'll cover it. And of course, we are going to use, I'm going to vent it here, we're going to use the Easy Fit silicone lid. So we don't even need to use foil. This is reusable, so we can bake right with this on there. We'll be able to take this off when it's time, but then we can also use this as a lid again when our stuffing is done. So we're going to put this in, like I said, for about a half hour, and then we'll take the lid off and let it continue to bake. All right, next up, we are going to have a little bit of a twist on macaroni and cheese. And by a little bit of a twist, I mean there's no cheese. So this is a really great vegan option if you're looking for that. But it's also a great dairy-free option, obviously, if you're just looking for something dairy-free, or if you want to trick the kids into having some more vegetables and them thinking they're having mac and cheese. So what we have here, butternut squash, just like we did with the stuffing. I cooked it for about 3 minutes in the microwave just to soften it up. I peeled it, and I'm just cutting it into really rough chunks. All right, the blender is going to do all the work for us. And you guys have seen that before. Here's those pieces left over from the spiralizer. We'll give those a little wedge here. So for the blender today, we are going to be using the sauce setting. We're going to throw all of our ingredients in. and let it cook. So we're gonna start out with 2 cups of vegetable broth, okay? Again, if you don't want or need the vegan option, absolutely any kind of broth will work. Throw in our onion. We're gonna add some rosemary. You can use fresh or dried. And you only need a little bit, so I just have this little sprig here. Use the herb stripper and kind of pull that off. Okay. We're gonna add some nutmeg, about 1/2 teaspoon. Now with the butternut squash and the rosemary in there, this will be a nice seasonal side dish. It'll go with all of your holiday meals just fine. We're gonna add some salt, a couple tablespoons of olive oil. We're gonna add some nutritional yeast. I have 1/4 cup of nutritional yeast. 1/2 cup of cashews. Between the cashews and the butternut squash, we're gonna have a really nice creamy texture. And then we're gonna add some garlic. At least 1 clove, but if you really love garlic, you can add a little more. And then we're just gonna put the lid on, and we're gonna press start on the sauce setting, and we'll set the blender aside, and it can work its magic. We'll periodically add in some more of the butternut squash as we have room, because as I said, as it starts cooking, there's going to be some more room, just as it starts breaking everything up. And that way, as we go, I can just push them in right in the top. All right, so I'm going to set this aside. Our noodles we're going to make up later. Super quick and easy in the microwave. But we're gonna let this cook a bit first. So in the meantime, we're going to work on getting our cranberries ready, and we're gonna get our fun salad ready. While our fake mac and cheese is on its way, we're making that sauce over there, you're gonna hear the blender periodically stirring. It's fantastic, it's heating it up, it's cooking that sauce for us. And in the meantime, we are gonna get our cranberries ready. So our cranberry sauce, we can get this cooking. We're gonna let it cook on the stovetop for a little bit here, and then of course we will throw it in the fridge and let it cool before we serve it. So for this recipe, we're gonna make a variation of your traditional cranberry sauce and make cinnamon apple cranberry sauce. So I have already heating up, I have some cranberries, about 12 ounces of fresh cranberries. To that, we are going to add just a tablespoon of brown sugar. We're going to add a cup of fresh maple syrup. Now, cranberries are known for being quite tart, so we're going to use the maple syrup as our sweetener. This is one of those times that these measure-all cups come in so handy for syrup. All right, so we have our brown sugar, we have our syrup. We're gonna add a little bit of cinnamon, only about 1/4 teaspoon. We're gonna add some zest from an orange. I like to hold the zester kind of upside down like this so I can see how much I have. Just need a teaspoon or 2. And make sure, of course, when you are zesting a fruit that you are constantly moving that fruit. You don't want to zest in the same spot for too long. You don't want to get that white part underneath, because that is the pith and it is bitter, and that's not what you want in your food. You want the nice, fresh citrus flavors. We're then going to use the juice of this orange as well. So there's our zest. Just dump that in. And then we're going to take our orange and cut it in half, and we're going to use our juicer and get all of that nice juice out. It has a strainer built in, so we can just pour that juice right in there. And then we've got the cinnamon, but we need the apples. So we're going to take 2 Granny Smith apples and wedge them up. Take those cores out, and then we're going to dice them. And you can just take your knife, and you have quickly diced apple. All right, we're going to go ahead and add these apples right on in with our cranberries. All right, then we're going to give these a mix, and we're just going to let everything simmer for a little while. We want all those flavors to mix, and we want to cook down those cranberries a little bit. And as they're cooking, you're going to hear them pop a little bit. Totally normal. That's what you want to hear. So we'll just let this simmer off to the side. And while that's going, and while our sauce is cooking, we'll get our salad made. This salad that we're going to make, really fresh, really seasonal. This is an apple, carrot, and beet salad. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by making the dressing. We're going to take another orange. We're going to juice just about half of the orange. We're going to start by making our dressing here. So we need the juice from about half of an orange here. It's about 1/4 of a cup. Okay? And we're going to add in a tablespoon of white wine vinegar. And then we're going to add in a little salt and pepper and some fresh basil. So we'll add a little pepper. Salt. And then our fresh basil. We'll go ahead and use that lovely herb mill again. Pull these leaves off. Let the herb mill do its thing. That looks pretty good. And then we're just going to whisk these together, combine them. All right, to this we're going to add our vegetables. We're going to add some apples, some carrots, and some beets. Now the blade has two sides. We have the smaller side, which is your spaghetti blade, and the larger, which is your fettuccine. Okay? We're going to use the spaghetti blade for our carrots and for our beets, and then we'll use the fettuccine blade for our apples. So we're going to start with our beets. So I'll put that spaghetti blade up. We just put it in there. So just like the butternut squash, you just push down and turn. So we're going to just take those beets, and I'm throwing them in cold water. Now the reason we're doing this, as you can see and as you know, beets bleed a lot, right? And so I'm just setting them aside in some cold water. I'll bring it over in a minute. And what that's going to do is it's going to help reduce the amount of bleeding from your beets. It's basically giving them a rinse. So we're just going to let them sit in the water. We're going to spin them dry, and then our entire salad won't turn red from the beets. All right? So I'm going to give this a rinse quick, and then we'll be ready to move on to our carrots and our apples. So we've got our beets. Like I said, we're going to just let them sit aside. I have them inside the salad spinner so that when it's time, it'll be really easy to drain that water and spin them dry. All right, so as long as we're still on the spaghetti blade, we are going to add some carrots. Now, your carrots need to be nice, big, fat carrots so that you can put them right on that spindle and you can spiralize them. Thin ones don't work as well because you don't have a whole lot to grab onto. Now our carrots, after they're spiralized, we can just take these and we're going to put them right in with our dressing. And then we're going to flip over that blade. So we have the fettuccine blade ready to go, and we're going to throw our apple through here. So same thing with the apple. We'll just throw that on and we're going to spiralize it. Now, instead of using that ribbon blade like we did earlier, we are using the fettuccine blade. So you'll see coming out the slide here, you'll see strings of Granny Smith apple. All right, so add that apple in there. We can set all of this aside, and we're gonna get our beets ready to go. So for our beets, I'm just gonna walk over to the sink. I'm gonna drain out this water. Look at all that color. all of this color is color that's not going to be bleeding through the rest of our salad. So I'm going to drain this water out quick, and I'll be right back. So after that water is drained out, then we can just put the lid on the salad and berry spinner, and we'll just spin any excess water out. And that way, we don't have extra water going in our salad. See all that extra water that came out? We don't have that in our salad watering it down. So now we can just take some tongs, and we're just going to mix this all together. All right, while we're waiting for our cranberries to cool and our sauce to finish cooking, we do need to get our noodles cooked. Now, I don't like standing over the stovetop watching pasta cook. I don't like it when it spills all over the stovetop. So I'm going to show you one of my favorite ways to get pasta made real quickly. So, pound of just elbow macaroni noodles and 3 cups of broth. So we're going to do the same thing we did earlier. Throw some of our water in so that then we can mix in our broth. Again, we're sticking with the vegetable broth today for no reason other than it'll match exactly what's in our sauce. Now, when you cook your noodles in broth, you actually give them this really nice savory flavor, okay? The broth just adds a really nice touch to your noodles versus just cooking them in water. And we are going to make these in the microwave, quick and easy. And when we use the microwave to cook our pasta and we have just the right ratio of pasta and liquid, we don't even need to drain the noodles when they're done cooking, which means all of those starches that come off the noodles are going to stay right in the pot. We're not going to be draining any of those off. And those starches will help give your dish a nice creamy texture without the addition of any cream. So, bonus for our mac and cheese that we're making today. So, when you are making your pasta in the microwave, the general rule of thumb is to make sure you have enough liquid to cover your noodles, plus a little bit, right? Because it's going to absorb that liquid. All right, so you can see that our pasta is pretty covered here. We've got all that liquid in there. Now, the cook time, this is the best part. When your pasta says it takes 10 to 12 minutes to boil on the stovetop, that's all it takes in the microwave without waiting for the water to boil first. For this particular pasta, it says to cook for about 15 to 16 minutes. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to throw it in the microwave for 8 minutes. I'm going to give it a stir and then throw it back in for another 8 minutes. And when I'm stirring it, I'll kind of be able to judge if it needs a little more or a little less than that extra 8 minutes. So we're going to put this in for 8 minutes and we'll give it a check. All right, so look at this, guys. We have so many fun new side dishes to try. I'm going to plate up a little bit of each so you can check these out. So first we made this new stuffing recipe. It had some Granny Smith apples, some butternut squash in it. We used the vegetable broth. It is so moist. This is not going to be dry stuffing this year. And we'll throw some of that on our plate. We also made a fun new twist on your cranberry sauce, right? So we have apple cinnamon. So we have our cranberries sweetened with some maple syrup and some brown sugar. And then we had some cinnamon and some Granny Smith apples in there to give it a nice seasonal flavor. Of course, we have our apple, carrot, and beet salad. Fun new take on a salad, again with those great seasonal veggies. The kids will love the fun strings and that excellent burst of color on your plate. And then our fun take on macaroni and cheese. So we have our pasta fresh out of the microwave. I stirred it halfway through and I'm going to show you guys. You can just see, even without adding anything, you can just see the creaminess on those noodles, and that's just the starches and the broth that we use to cook them. So we'll throw a little bit of the macaroni on our plate, and then we've got our sauce with the butternut squash and all of those other fun herbs and seasonings in there. Now you can keep blending this up until it's smooth as can be, or you can leave a little bit of texture to it. So there we go. We have are fun new takes on some traditional side dishes for this holiday season. So if you would like to check out these recipes or any of these products, you can head on over to pamperedchef.com. You can search for me, Rachel Hanson, or your local Pampered Chef consultant. And I want to give a big thank you to Sunshine Supper for letting us use their kitchen this week. If you guys are local in Sun Prairie, come on out on a Monday night for a free dinner with the community. All right, we will see you guys next time. Thanks for joining us today.